The governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. I read that was probably 100 to 200 people. The praetorium was really a lot of names given to it, but people thought that was where Pilate was choosing to stay. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, then twisted a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. What I don't see here is what the other Gospels record, which is about Jesus being flogged. And what I read about Jesus being flogged was the Roman flogging prior to crucifixion was a terrible ordeal in and of itself, that people were really flogged within an inch of their death there, by virtue of the flogs they using having small piece of bone on the end, that when people were flogged, in fact, they were cut very deeply. And we know that Jewish law had some limit on the number of lashes that you could get, 40 I think, and that limit was exceeded by the Roman soldiers, who really sought to punish the people as severely as they could. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. The story of Simon is that he was there probably for Passover, that he happened to be maybe wrong place, wrong time, depending on your perspective. And that the business of him carrying the cross was secondary to the fact that Jesus could not, that he was so weak with the beating that he had received. Because customarily, the person that was being crucified carried their own cross, or a portion of the cross, with them. So they came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Interestingly, so when we talk about where Jesus was crucified, what name do we give that? Calvary. And those of you who are anatomy students, the skull is referred to anatomically as the calvarium, from which we get the word Calvary. Just an interesting little tidbit I'll throw in there. Come in. A little tidbit I'll throw. There they offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it.
What's gall?
Thank you. First of all, I'll tell you, I don't know what gall is, but what I read about the gall was that it was something that was generally given as a sedative, but when they mixed it with this ugly stuff, it was very bitter. So for a common criminal, at this point in time, they would care to give him something as a sedative, okay, kind of help him out a little bit. But in this case, that didn't happen. They mixed it with something very bitter, such that Jesus refused it. I don't know that. That's what I've read. That makes sense to me. Okay? Get that screaming kid out of here. No.
She was trying to scream quietly.
When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. And sitting down, they kept watch over him. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Jesus, the King of the Jews, a very antagonizing thing for the Romans to do to the Jewish people. They didn't really appreciate it. Two robbers were crucified with him, one on the right, one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shook their heads, saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and elders mocked him. He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusted in God, let God rescue him. Now, if he wants him, for he said, I am the Son of God. In the same way, the robbers who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. Now, that's all Matthew has to say about that. We know that, I guess it's in Luke, that the two robbers, they did begin insulting him, and we know that during the course of the crucifixion, one of the robbers came around and basically said, this is enough, this is enough. And in some way, I suppose, repented. That's the man to whom Jesus spoke. We'll talk about that in just a minute. From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. And I understand the 6th hour in Jewish terms would have been noon. So we're talking about noon until about 3 o'clock. Okay? About the 9th hour, which would be around 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And we know that that's a direct quote from Psalm 22, don't we? That comes straight from Psalms 22. And interestingly enough, when you read just a snippet of Psalms in your scripture that somebody is reciting, or that the writer Matthew here is noting, the person who said that would not have in mind just a single verse. He would have in mind the swath, the whole story, which we'll talk about that in a minute too, because I think chapter 22 of Psalms is an incredibly interesting psalm to read. But interestingly enough, it's also followed by Psalm 23, which we know the Lord is my shepherd. So kind of interesting to consider the fact that Jesus on the cross is considering 22 and 23. When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put in a stick, offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, the tombs broke open, bodies of many holy people had died, raised to life. They came out to the tombs after Jesus' resurrection. They went to the holy city, appeared to many people, and David alluded to that in his sermon.
Hey, Steve,
Yes,
is
sir.
there a significance to it being torn from top to bottom versus bottom to top?
I've got to believe there's significance, but I'm not able to tell you. Has anybody been told what that might mean, what that might signify? I do not know. I don't know, Carl. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified, exclaimed, surely he is the Son of God. Many women were there watching from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joses, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. And then I'm not going to continue. We'll talk about the burial of Jesus as well as the guard of the tomb. We'll talk about that some next week. We'll talk about resurrection. I need a copy of my notes. Got that thing. I got it. Thank you. So, some questions that I had, trying to think through this a little bit today. What could I present? What ideas could I present? Let me just ask you, just conceptually, what do you think God had in mind when he sent Jesus to earth as a man? What do you think God was trying to do? What's God's number one reason to have sent his son to earth? What do you think?
Example of what we should be.
Example of what we should be. That's not the answer.
Before he died.
That wasn't the answer. That wasn't the answer I was expecting, right? That's the answer I want to teach. What do you think the number one answer from Reformation on would be?
Seek and save the lost.
So what now?
Seek and save the lost.
Seek and save the lost by what means?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice for what?
Our sins.
For sins. It's really, really interesting historically how people have thought about cross and the cross's meaning. Okay? Look at this second point. Meaning of the cross. there's this idea called Christus Victor. Has anybody ever heard of Christus Victor other than David here? You've heard of Christus Victor? Tell me about Christus Victor. What do you know about that?
It's the principle of Christ being victorious over death that was introduced because of man choosing not to follow along with God's
Yeah.
plan for creation.
So when I was reading about this myself and looking this up, this idea of Christus Victor, I had read about it before, but I did not recognize that for about the first 1,000 years of Christendom, first 1,000 years after Christ, that when people thought about the cross, the number one thing that was taught about the cross was the victory of Christ over death. Okay? It wasn't about forgiveness of sins. That would have been a part of it, but the primary thought was victory over death. And as we know, particularly if we read Paul, Paul equates sin and death as basically equivalents, right? So when you overcome sin and death, I mean, you've got the victory. So it was the idea of the victorious life in spite of sin, in spite of all the things. In fact, what kept humankind from atonement, which we'll talk about that in just a second, what keeps humankind from atonement is the fact that we are just constantly held down by death. So that when Jesus overcame death, okay, we in fact overcome sin and achieve atonement. Yes, ma'am.
You answered it.
I'm sorry?
You answered it.
Yeah. So this word atonement, a really fancy word. Y'all have any idea where the word atonement came from? If you got a pencil, I want you to write down the word atonement. Just write it down right now. Write down atonement. And tell me what words you can make out of the word atonement. Just look at it. Make me 3 words out of atonement. And we'll have to stretch one of the words and pretend that you're Old English. Okay? So what would your 3 words be? What's your first word? At. What's your second? One. What's your third?
Min.
Okay. At one moment, at one time, we are one with God. Tell me a time recorded in Scripture where man was at one with God. In the garden. Skip, in the garden. In the garden. There's a song that when I grew up, I loved this song. It's one of my favorite songs. What was it? Yeah. Who sang it?
We sing it at Michigan Bible Camp.
Michigan Bible Camp didn't sell a whole bunch of records. It's by Pat Boone. Pat Boone. Anybody here remember Pat Boone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pat Boone recorded a song of hymns, and one was My God and I. My God and I walk through the fields together.
We walk and talk.
We walk and talk as good friends should do. We clasp our hands, our voices ring with laughter. My God and I can't remember the rest of it. Yeah, I can't remember the rest of it. It's a beautiful song, okay? And it's this picture of atonement. It's that picture of it, okay? And so we know the story of Genesis. We know the story of the garden. We know that Satan came into the garden and destroyed this at one moment. He destroyed it. He brought sin in. Men made some bad choices, and there was separation. So when I think about what I read in Scripture, I think about how we put it all together. Scripture is the story of God's mission to His creation to restore atonement. Okay? It's a beautiful picture. How God does that. How does God come back to his creation and make it right again? Okay? How does he do that? Well, ultimately, that is in the cross. And we look at the cross and you try to figure out what is the cross all about. And the three ideas, primary ideas of what the cross represents is, first, for the first 1,000 years, Christus Victor. And then with the Reformation, with Luther, with Zwingli, with Calvin, that group of people that came along, a little bit of a tweak, and they weren't the originators of this thought. There were other Christian writers that are not particularly familiar to me, okay? But they wrote about the idea of Christ being a vicarious substitution, right? Now, vicarious is one of those big old words, okay? Vicarious substitution. But the gist of it is, we have sin, we are guilty, and we're incapable of establishing a relationship with God without God's own help, okay? So God, in the person of his son Jesus, okay, he functions as our substitution. It is us and our sin that were guilty and deserve the price of sin, which is death. Okay, they're all tied together. But Jesus comes in the world and Jesus takes that away from us, okay, in our place. That's this idea of vicarious substitution. And I don't want to talk about all that. We don't have time to. But it's an interesting thought to me, a very interesting thought, that the first 1,000 years was victorious Christ and then is replaced in large part by substitution. And one thing that I have gained myself in studying this is that neither one of these, it's not like one is wrong and one is right. The fact of the matter is, they're both right. Followed by a third right that I think that we under-talk about, under-emphasize more than any, Ray, and it's the very thing that you mentioned, which just puts you in the top 10%, buddy, okay? All right? And that's the idea of this moral influence, the idea that Jesus, in fact, comes to earth and teaches us how it is to fully become man, okay? What he intended in mankind. God, as creator, intended in his creation that it be good. And man is created in his image to be his image bearer, to be good. And we know that historically, and we know that our own lives, we fall very short of that. So here's Jesus with the perfect example of how we are to live. And we can read the Gospels, and you see time and time again examples of how Jesus treated the marginalized, how he treated women, how he treated poor, how he treated children, all those things. And we gather from that, this is who God intends us to be. And then the cross comes along. The cross comes along. And I've got some real questions about the cross in terms of example. I want to just digress for just a moment, okay? I have seen so many people die. I have seen more people die than anybody here, unless you were at Hiroshima or somewhere. I have had dear friends hold my hand behind their head, looking right in their face, and watch them die. Okay? And I want you to know, I have seen people die well, and I have seen people die in absolute fear. I've seen both sides of it. I've seen eyes that shook, saying, "Help me, help me, help me," as they died. Okay? And I've seen people close their eyes and know exactly what's going on in their life. I've seen let's think about Jesus' death on the cross and think about it as an example. And what I did was pull up and copy the so-called traditional last 7 statements of Jesus. Okay? The last 7 statements of Jesus. And these presumably are in some sort of chronological order. Okay? Let's just go through these just for a moment. And as we read these, I want you to reflect. I want you to reflect on a dying man, a dying, suffering servant of God. Okay? Hanging on a cross, okay? Who is God, who is also fully man. Right? And let's just see if Jesus can teach us something. If he can teach us something about how to die. Okay? The first statement, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. What's the emphasis here? Jesus on the cross. Jesus put there for contrived reasons. There's no justice in it. And what's Jesus' response?
Grace.
His response is one of grace. It's one of grace. He doesn't cry for justice there. He cries for grace. The deepest love that someone can have. The second statement. Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. What's that all about?
What he said to the other thief
Say
on
it.
the cross.
To the thief that was a priest on the side.
Yeah, he's talking to the priest, to the thief on the side. I was talking to Pat yesterday about this. Pat was talking about the 2 guys being with him in paradise. I said, Pat, now I don't think the other guy made it. I don't know what happened to that other guy. My idea is he didn't make it, all right? But this one guy, I mean, yeah, paradise with Jesus. This third statement, woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. He's on the cross. He is suffering. He is dying. He is in excruciating pain. Who's he thinking about? He's thinking about his mother. He's thinking about human relationships. Some people have argued that the person that he speaks to, behold, this is your mother, was John. Looks right at John on the cross. What do you think John felt? What do you think John felt when Jesus said that to him?
Probably honor.
Probably honored. Let me ask you this. You think Jesus John took care of her?
Yes.
I believe that's one I'd remember. Yeah. All right, the fourth statement, my God, why have you forsaken me? The only one of these that's recorded twice, once in Matthew, once in Mark. My God, why have you forsaken me? What does that say? We're going to spend a little time here now. What do you think?
See,
Yep.
I've often wondered, I believe he says that when it got dark, maybe, if I'm correct, when God turns away from him and it got dark for those 3 hours, I'm not sure though, but I'm wondering if it got dark and he turned away is when Jesus was bearing all of the sin of the world, and maybe that was just so much on Jesus at that time that God just had to look away for those 3 hours, that the sin was just so great, and maybe that's what caused Jesus to say that.
Don't let me put words in your mouth, but I'm going to try right here right quick.
Okay.
So this was a time where Jesus was under such physical pain, etc., that he literally broke down.
I mean, it's a thought. suffering of Christ was so
Yeah.
great.
Let me ask you all a question. I've heard this all my life in multiple sermons about God turning his head and Jesus being alone. Where does that come from? David, you know?
That's more our interpretation of what we think is being said, but you're going to get to Psalm 22 here in a moment, but in the context of Psalm 22, it's a lament, but it's a hopeful lament if you read the context of the psalm. Boy, you're going to go look at that.
No, David, you're helping me. I think I've had pounded into my head all my life the idea that God leaves Jesus and left him. Okay? I've had pounded in my life that the cost of Jesus bearing our sin was that he was separated from God for a period. Okay?
Well, and isn't that because sin and God can't be there together?
Margaret,
That's what they're saying.
I have heard that, and I'm not sure I go with that anymore.
Well, if you-
I think there can be the perception, the lament of a human being that is under such incredible stress that you might think that, okay?
I don't think
But-
he left him, but I think he turned away for a little while.
Well, I don't know what turning away means, okay? I mean, here's what I have had taught me.
As a
From-
parent, though, when your children have done so much,
Yeah.
and as a parent, you have to go, enough, you're still there.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of praying.
Yeah.
I don't think God ever left him, but it's like, I can't bear this for you.
Yeah.
This was the plan.
But you see, theologically, what I think has been taught me from the pulpit a lot of times in my life is that there's this moment, there's this time where God turns his head and there Jesus is alone on the cross, okay?
When I'm
This
talking about as a
separation.
parent.
And I just want to put in your heads, and you all can think about it, because I'm having to think about it. You know, I'm having to think about it. I'll be 74 this fall. I'm a long-time Christian. I have studied my Bible, and after studying this, I've come away with, I'm wondering whether I got that right or not, okay? So if I have to struggle with it, you guys got to struggle with it, okay? All right? Just get over it. But you know, I do wonder that. And here's the thing. When you go back and read Psalms 22, and you remember what I said at the very beginning, when there's a single verse, oftentimes what that means is there's a lot more coming that was on Jesus' mind. It's not like that. It's more like a reference to a swath of the text, okay? So for a moment, just help me. Just Jesus is thinking these words. And listen to all these words. Don't listen just a few of them, okay? My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from the words of my groaning. Oh my God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer by night, and I am not silent. Then verse 3. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the praise of Israel. And you, our fathers, put their trust. They trusted you, and you delivered them. They cried to you and were saved. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. But I'm a worm and not a man, scorned by men and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord. Let the Lord rescue him. You heard those words in Matthew?
Yeah.
Let him deliver him, since he delights in it. Verse 9. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You were there the day I was born. You made me trust in you even at my mother's breast. From birth I was cast upon you. From my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near and there is no one to help. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is turned to wax. It's melted away with me. My strength is dried up like potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing. But you, O Lord, be not far away. O my strength, come quickly to help me. Deliver my life from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs. Rescue me from the mouth of the lions. Verse 22, I will declare your name to my brothers in the congregation. I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you descendants of Jacob, honor him. 24, for he has not despised or disdained the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from me, but he has listened to his cry for help. Whoa. Is that a little bit different than verse 1? From you comes the theme of my praise in the great assembly. Before those who fear you, I will fulfill my vows. 29, all the rich of the earth will feast and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before him. Those who cannot keep themselves alive. Posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, for he has done it. And then right after that, and I'll tell you something. Nathan, you know when the 23rd Psalm, when the order of the Psalms was put together, would Jesus have read his Bible in 22 and 23 be put together this way?
The writings are still open part of the canon. I can't answer that. I don't know.
All right. But then the 23rd Psalm comes, and let me just teach it this way. Let me teach it that Jesus was very familiar with 23, okay? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. Yea, though I walk bad places in life, you're with me. Okay? Now, let me back up just a little bit, because I do believe that there's a teaching here about lament, and lament being okay and lament being right. Okay? I think Jesus is lamenting here. Okay? But if you look at the Psalms of David and all the laments, I say all the laments, most of the laments that I've read, most of the laments are written by a man of faith who, while he can feel the discouragement of the moment, the pain of the moment, still recognizes that there's a God who rules, and a God that's going to take care of it. Okay? And that's something that I think when Jesus quotes, when he quotes that Psalms 22, I think Jesus knows that right on the cross. Okay? It's a horrible, 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 horrible time. Okay? And yet, he knows that God is his Father. He knows that God is there in the worst of times. He says, I thirst. I think of that as I can't make anything out of that other than that is a human standing on a cross that thirst. And then the last two, and John quotes, it is finished. This word finished could be translated, it is complete, as if to say, I've done what I was sent here to do. Okay, I'm done now. And then Luke 23, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Now, I just, some of you have heard this and some of you haven't. I've been told this before and had forgotten about it. And again, we had a family reunion yesterday, okay? And Margaret and I had all 5 of our children. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. You all have dealt with that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You who are younger, your day's coming when your grown children come home and they bring their children. And it's quite an occasion. It is quite an occasion. They were there for a few days. I think Pat came in, was it Wednesday night, Margaret? Something like that, or whatever. Anyway, he was with us 2 or 3 days. And it was great. He drove back, he left yesterday, I guess about 2 o'clock, and he's preaching in Dallas this morning, so I think I'm probably doing a lot better job than he is, okay? No. But I'm sure he's tired just a second. But Pat said, Dad, tell the story tell the story that Henry Nouwen wrote about. Y'all know who Henry Nouwen is? All right, if you see a book, Henry Nouwen, David, who's Henry Nouwen?
He's a Catholic,
Priest?
priest that has written a lot on lots of different, but he also made a decision, I think made a decision to kind of leave that position of status and begin to minister to those of lower esteem. I think that's kind of the story.
Yeah, he moved into a home
That's right.
in Canada, I believe. And it's got a name, those that are more familiar with him than I am, but he moved into this home that was primarily for adults
Disabled.
who were disabled, a lot of them mentally handicapped, okay? And he lived there. And he wrote a number of relatively short books. I've read 2 or 3 of them. They're beautiful books. They really have beautiful, beautiful thoughts. If you've got time for a short, just Henry Nouwen, go buy one of them, okay? They're really beautiful things. And he simply was able to see things in life and make spiritual applications that they're just beautiful. One of the applications that he made, he said, I believe he was visiting with his parents in Europe, and they introduced him to a family called the Flying Rodleys. Never heard of, I've heard of the Flying Walindas, but this is the Flying Rodleys, okay? And he became friends with them and asked if he could tour with them for a while. So he actually toured with his trapeze act for 6 to 8 weeks. Now that's got to be something there. You got this little, I say little, I picture him as a small statured guy that's a Catholic priest, and so he's a little different to start off with, okay? And he's touring out there with his trapeze act, all right? So he gets to be big buddies with them, and he asked Daddy Rodley. He said, Daddy Rodley, which is the tougher job? Being the catcher or being the flyer? Okay. Being the catcher or being the flyer? What do y'all think about that?
I would say being the flyer, but you gotta put a lot of faith in that person who's doing the catching.
Well, number one, I ain't gonna be the one of them, okay? Maybe 200 pounds ago, I might have thought about it, okay? But no, not right now. There's no flying, there's no catching for me there, okay? There better be a big net, and I don't want it very far down, right? But he asked, and the answer was, and I've got it written for you, the flyer does nothing, and the catcher does everything. The flyer does nothing, the catcher does everything. I never thought about that. Y'all ever thought about that? He says all the flyer has to do, he releases and stretches out his arms, okay? If he tries to catch the catcher, there's a big screw up, okay? One of them's got to do the catching, one's got to do the flying. He got to fly out there, hold his arms out. And it's all on the catcher. It's all on the catcher to catch him. I never knew that. But I hadn't done a whole lot of that. Okay, so yeah, man.
The flyer's gotta let go.
The flyer.
At the right time.
Trust.
Good point. Before he can fly, he's absolutely got to let go. He's got to let go.
And trust.
And trust. That's right. So Henry Nouwen takes this story and he makes a God thing out of it, which I think is absolutely a beautiful, beautiful idea. Okay? That in life, and it's in every aspect of life, get right down to it, it's in every aspect of life. I suppose we got to do something, we got to let go, don't we? We got to do something. We got to let go. And we got to have a whole lot of faith. And I'm telling you, I think this isn't about the grand hoorah necessarily. This is about every aspect of our life when you really get down to it. If you want to be happy, then I'm telling you, you can't sit there and believe that you can get it all done. there's a dependence that you've got to develop on the catcher for every aspect of your life. I'll tell you, you all that are here that have young kids, you're going to have young kids, I mean, I'm going to tell you, you better trust a whole lot in the catcher, because you're going to do some flying, all right? Yes, sir, you're going to do some flying. As far as the grand hurrah goes, okay, the people that I see and I have seen in my life who have the greatest problem with dying are the ones that just can't let go. Now, folks, I mean, I've seen it. And I don't want to, I want to be very, very careful because, you know, I don't want anybody thinking that somehow or another I'm talking down about their parent or whatever who couldn't do it, okay? All right, you've seen these things. But I'm telling you, the folks that I've seen in my life who had the biggest problems dying, be that the process or be that at the final moments, they were the ones who couldn't let go. They couldn't let go because they just couldn't do enough themselves. There just wasn't enough that could be done. And there's that point in time that comes to all of us where I'm telling you, you just got to let go. And you got to trust in that catcher. Yeah, Randy.
Jimmy Wiggins died this past week.
I heard that.
And he has a quote, I think some maybe shared a quote that earlier Jim said, the last thing you'll ever do for God is die. So he said, do it well. I thought that was the Father's Day.
Anybody want to relate any stories there? I'll relate two stories, okay? One is a guy, I think he was probably 51 or 52, and he had his first infarct was when he was about age 34 to 35 years old. It was in the family. His family had they had a familial cholesterol lipid problem, okay? And I mean, it was high. He got sent to me by this guy in town that told me he was depressed. And I saw him, ran an EKG, and he ain't depressed, he's having a heart attack. I remember that. That was kind of fun telling that guy that he missed that diagnosis. He probably had umpteen stents put in. And I don't know. I question whether he ever knew the Lord. I really question that. But he's the one that I still can see his face. Help me, help me, help me, help me. God. No peace there. No peace there at all. And then I remember there's another guy, I've told this before. There's our next door neighbors, Brian and Mary Jane Barton. I think Brian is an elder at one of the churches over in Manchester. Mary Jane's dad, his last name was Keel. Mr. Keel. Sam Keel. Well, there were two Sam Keels. There was a well digger Sam Keel that I took care of, and then there was an elder Sam Keel. They both came in. You could confuse them if they're insurance. They got billed for each other all the time. Anyway, elder Sam Keel, he was up his own. I could see he was like the third door down on the front wing of the hospital, second floor. And Sam had congestive heart failure. Okay. And I talked to Sam one day and told Sam that he's going to die Didn't know when, but I didn't think he had a long time. And he had his children bring, so sweet, he had his children bring his grandchildren in, one by one. And he blessed every one of them. Okay? And he died that night. Is that incredible? I think that's incredible. And to me, that's the kind of death that we all want to try to have, okay? And we all don't get that. Some of us are going to be different than others, okay? I'm not trying to put anything on anybody. But I'm telling you, I think Jesus on the cross very much example to each of us how we face that time. I think it's important that we recognize that. There's more to Jesus' death than just he got up there and died and forgave us of our sins, okay? There's more to it. There's a huge example to us and how to live and how to act in our lives, okay? And it's not just, again, it's not just about the last hurrah. It's about dealing with cancer. It's about dealing with all kinds of stuff that get in our face in life, because it's going to. It's just going to.
Hey, Daddy,
Yeah.
I
Hang on a minute. I got to blow my nose. It's a terrible, terrible thing to have a runny nose. Try to teach and talk.
The movie, The Revenant, I don't know if you remember that, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
You know, had the big bear attack.
I remember that bear.
Yeah, that's a scene you can't forget. But there's a line in that movie, the end of that movie, where the main character, DiCaprio's character, says, "I'm not afraid of dying. I've done it already." And
that's
that
very
strikes me. I mean, I think that's a very Christian sentiment. You're talking about letting go.
Yeah.
And if the first time that we let go is at death, we're not going to want to let go. But Christians, I think, in essence, are supposed to be very practiced at letting go. In another way, we're supposed to be very practiced at dying. Not, that final death, but the fact that we know how to do that. We know how to do it well because we've been practicing that.
Yeah, what does Jesus say about losing your life? Can you quote that, somebody? Huh?
He who loses his life will find it.
He who loses his life will find it. Yeah, that's some kind of thought, isn't it? Thank you, Nathan. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's one of those classes where I get up and I talk the whole time. I hate that I do that. Sometimes y'all just sit there too and let me.
You could sing that song that Nathan was talking about.
The song.
No, Jennifer,
Nathan didn't tell me he was going to do that. And he didn't ask me. Ray, you get children get to a certain age and they don't ask you more. They just do that. But I do remember that. Let me get myself happy again. A little less melancholy. Yeah, that was over at the old Bel Air Church. And, you all that have known me, you all know that I think I can do just about anything. Well, I discovered something I couldn't do that night. I can't figure who it was. We had a song where it just didn't show up, and I thought, shoot, I'll lead a song. I've been singing all my life. I love to sing. I put that thing up, and it was on Jordan's Stormy Waves, okay? Jordan's Stormy Waves, whatever. Or Stinks Up, yeah. Banks I Stand, there you go, all right? It's been a little while, Carl, it's been a little while. But honest to goodness, there are two daggone songs in that book. They're both by the same title, okay?
That's right. That's what I said. There's 2 or 3 different versions.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. There's something wrong with that book, okay? Not me, the book. But I started off singing that one, and honest to goodness, I'm singing the one and singing the two to the other one. And Carol Petty's sitting up there in the front, and I mean, Carol's just singing right with me. And we get that point where the words can't possibly be sung with that music, and it's kind of like, what in the world is going on? And surprisingly, I've never been asked again to lead second.
At least you had confidence.
I had full of confidence. I had let go.
You never.
Not really.
No one called.
Yes. That night I died just a little bit. All right, folks. That's all I've got prepared. If anybody's got anything else, yeah.
I found out one thing about the temple curtain, or
Yeah.
veil.
Yeah.
It was 60 feet high, 30 feet wide, and 4 inches thick. And it was like, there's no way any human could have torn that.
It's interesting. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know the Catholics believe in the blood and the bread actually becoming the body and blood of Christ. I mean, the wine and the bread. When did that come about? Because I know that, I don't think that was an early practice in Christendom, or maybe Nathan could, I don't know.
Well, that's such an easy question. I'm going to ask Nathan.
I'll give you something to read when we get home, Bob.
Oh, thank you.
Did not Jesus say, this is my body, this is my blood?
He does.
And one of our dear sisters said,
Believes it.
we do not do it correctly. Jesus said,
Yeah.
this is my body, this is my blood. He didn't say it represents it.
Yeah. So there's this business of transubstantiation, which is kind of what Margaret's describing that some people believe. And there's this also this thing called consubstantiation. And then there's one other one. Nathan, what's the one? It's another substantiation, but none of it, you know. And traditionally what we believe is that, in fact, they're emblems. And I don't ever recall them being called elements.
Emblems.
Emblems.
Yeah, you should have corrected me.
I
That's
was
the
very
word.
uncomfortable correcting you in front of the whole church after you just made a,
I've called them elements before. Elements. Can I imagine this? No, it
the church she grew up in, which was very, very old fashioned.
I was
Elements.
gonna say, like, the more traditional churches of Christ call them elements.
They call them elements.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to be real conservative. It's okay.
I thought that, but emblems is good.
You predated me, Nathan. Yes, yes.
I have another question.
What now?
I have another question.
Yes.
I have often wondered why, when Jesus was on the cross, that he asked John to,
Take care of your mother.
take care of his mother. Why wouldn't the other sons of Mary take care of Mary? Wouldn't it go to the biological sons to take care of her?
I want you to live a long, prosperous, and good life so that one day you can ask Jesus that question.
I'm curious as to.
I do not know.
Okay.
I think Jesus loved John as a brother. You know, we know that James, the brother of Jesus, later was a powerful person within the church. We also traditionally believe that a number of Jesus' siblings were not believers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have the answer. I
Okay.
do not know.
Just curious.
Some other curiosities here?
Symbolic of how everyone is adopted.
Could well be, Brent. Could well be. Absolutely.
Maybe that was John's gift.
There again, after she gets through asking, if you need some clarification, you ask Jesus that also, okay? I'm gonna be on the side listening to both of you, okay? All right? Yes. Turn down the harps a little bit, Brent can't quite hear. Okay, love everybody, y'all have a great week, okay? Next week, we talk about the resurrection.